Nicole, it is such a pleasure to have you back on Transform Your Workplace. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course, I'm excited to be back.
This is a topic I think I talked with Lacey and Tony about years ago on like compassion
Yeah.
fatigue. And I know this is coming up a lot with HR professionals, just the weight that they carry. There's a lot of craziness, whether it's the economy, people struggling. And I think like the HR role often gets kind of labeled as a or described as a caretaker in a lot of ways for an organization. What kind of
Yeah.
stress and emotional weight do you see HR professionals carrying that people outside of that field may not recognize?
Yeah, I really like to think of HR as like the emotional sponge of the organization,
That's a
if
good way to
if
put
that
it.
makes sense,
Yeah.
because we're handling, layoffs, employee crises, conflict between leaders, compliance issues. So there is just like this invisible work or load or weight that HR professionals carry, and that's our role. Like that's what we're there to do. We're there to support the organization and the employees and the leaders and deal with all of these problems. Like we're the support person for so many different levels within an organization, but it can get heavy and hard for HR professionals, and it's really important to take care of yourself. So those are just kind of some examples of all of the weight or the things that come up that HR professionals have to absorb and then keep calm and carry on.
I think burnout in HR is a little tricky because this role is so much about supporting other people.
Yeah.
But HR professionals, are they good about recognizing those early signs that they're taking on way too much and it's a little overwhelming and that they're at the point of burnout? Or do you just like go, go, go until one day you're just like, I can't take this anymore?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It really happens, I think, quickly, and it is hard to recognize that in yourself as an HR professional because it just feels like you're doing that for other people, and it's easy that we recognize that in other people, and we're like, here's what you need to do to support yourself. Like if an employee is coming to me and sharing their work-life balance challenges, like I'll give them these actionable like steps or be like, you've got PTO, or like, here's the policy on this, here's how I can support you. And so because we're saying that so much and supporting others, we never stop to think about, well, that's true for me too. And I'm an employee too, right? And I need to take
Right.
care of myself as well. So I think it does happen fast. I think it's harder to recognize in ourselves. And so that's why we're that person that recognizes that and supports other people. So who is that person for us, right? I think of like managers and leaders that HR reports to or heads of the organizations having to think that through and remind themselves to be that person for their HR teams as well.
This probably has to be tricky for like small HR teams where they probably feel lonely and on an island and
Yeah.
probably pulled between executive leadership and supporting the entire employee base. Like maybe describe that because I know you've worked internally as an HR professional. Now you're in a consulting role, but just how do those roles play a difference in how you might experience burnout?
In terms of, like, the internal HR role versus an
Yeah.
external
Yeah,
role?
especially a smaller
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a smaller team, you're usually an HR department of 1 a lot of times, or a very small HR team, and so, larger organizations where there's a larger HR department, you might have each other to lean on, right, within an HR team, but small organizations, there's usually that 1 HR person, and there's not another HR person to kind of talk through these issues and be able to get kind of the support that you need. And so HR's work is confidential, right? A lot of what we're dealing with and experiencing is confidential, and so we can't just go to another manager or leader to talk through those things. So it's really thinking about who can that support person be for you. Uh, is that peer networks, right? Is that like your local HR group or something that you can get support from? Is it an external consultant, right? Is it your leader that you report to within the organization, whether that's the CEO or the operations person, leaning on and building those relationships so that you can have that same level of support that you provide to others.
I imagine that'd be huge to have those resources, because for an HR person of, HR department of one to bear all of the weight of whatever's
Yeah.
happening inside of an organization, I'm sure you take that home with you, and that's
Yeah.
probably where the burnout starts creeping in.
Exactly. Yeah, you wanna have that level of support.
Now you've been in the HR field a while. I'm sure like there's pressure to be on and available for employees and leadership all the time. How have you personally, or you've seen it modeled with other HR professionals, set boundaries in this role without losing trust or credibility with the team?
Yeah, this is a great question because I will readily admit I am not the best person
We do
with
have a
doing
baby
that
at
for
home.
myself. I do, yeah, I've got a baby. There's so much going on, and so
Mhm.
admittedly, I'm not the best at setting those healthy boundaries, but I've reflected a lot on this lately because it is a busy time of year, I think, for us. And just like my team, I'm hearing from my team that like they're really busy. There's this client that needs this and another one needs this, and it all needs to happen right now. And so I advocate for them in terms of like, set boundaries for yourself, like prioritize, make sure you're taking like your lunch and stepping away from your computer. And, the work that we're doing is not life or death. Right? It will be there tomorrow or this afternoon. And so you don't need to work through, your lunch to be able to get this done. And so I advocate a lot for that. And I have had to remind myself recently of like, I need to do the same, right? I need to, the same things that I'm advocating for or telling others to do, I need to do for myself. So that's, just stepping away from your computer, even for just a few minutes, like can really transform your day in terms of like having that reset and going for a walk or just having a snack or drinking like my tea by the window or my coffee by the window or something like that and looking outside can really help your brain just reset of like, okay, there's more to life than just this problem or this thing that I'm in right now, and just making you see outside of yourself.
I'm sure there's the self-care strategies for like just ongoing, just regular, so you
Yeah,
just can not ever reach that burnout point. But I'm sure there's moments where you're in these like high stakes situations or just messy employee situations, or whatever you're dealing with, to walk away from that. And what kind of practices do you personally use to like decompress from a really nasty situation?
yeah. I love music. You probably know this about me, Brandon. I,
Mm,
I think music really helps me kind of decompress and kind of changes the dynamic of the moment. And so like some things that I do is I will listen to music either while I'm trying to solve a really challenging problem, because that helps kind of take my temperature down a little bit, if that makes sense, while
yeah.
I'm trying to sort through all of that. So listening to music, having a hot beverage right now and fall, like just stepping away and being able to do that. Putting intentional time on my calendar to break my day up has been really helpful for me in like ensuring that I'm able to not only fit everything in, but give myself like space and grace to really just reflect and step away and come back like ready to kind of tackle whatever that particular problem is. And so, yeah, those are the things that come top of mind for me. But what about you, Brandon? I'm kind of curious what you do too.
I
You might have some good ideas for me.
Yeah, yeah. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking like, I'm sure you, in your role especially, you're not always going to know when the high stakes
No.
conversations are going to
Yeah.
happen, or something might just totally blindside you in a meeting or something. But if you knew in advance that you're like, okay, this next hour I'm having this really sticky situation,
Yeah.
and then on the back end of that, I'm not going to schedule anything. So maybe I give
Yeah.
myself a half an
Yeah.
hour, and I do this for myself because I have a little bit more luxury in terms of my calendar. I'm mostly project
Yeah.
based, and less about meetings like you are. So I have the ability to give myself space in my calendar, and I do
Yeah.
block out time. And I use that time to, there's a couple different things I do. Go for a walk. I have a treadmill
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah.
So I'll go do a walk. I also listen to music. So if I'm not in a meeting, I usually have something blasting full blast in my office while I'm working. It just gets me in a good mood. I also
Yeah.
have done this practice called a non-sleep deep reset. It's kind of like a meditation breathing
Okay.
exercise. It's almost like a body scan. I
Nice.
use one by Andrew Huberman, who's I think pretty famous in the health space. And it's like 10 minutes of basically just body scan and breathing. And I'll
Yeah.
literally just lay here on my floor if I need a quick little reset. And it's a game, it has been a game changer for me.
Oh, good.
So those are just a few of the things that I actually use pretty much every day.
Good. That's
So
awesome.
I'm a creature of habit. So if I find things that stick, I usually do
Yeah.
those over and over again.
That's good. Yeah, no, I'll have to look into that last one, the body scan. That could, I think, really help me, especially in those like intense moments. But yeah, it is hard because we can't really predict what's going to pop up with
Right.
clients or what, and even internal HR, right? They never know what the day is going to throw at them.
Yeah.
And so it can be really hard, but like just I think giving yourself space before moving on to the next thing, right? If you've got a really challenging call or meeting with an employee, right? There is a tendency to go right in from that call into like, okay, I've got to draft this letter and I've got to do this and I've got to talk to this person and like you feel the pressure, the rush to now do the 5 or 10 things that came from that call or that situation that popped up. And I think it can not only make you get through all of those things faster and better, but also just like give you a moment to like, all right, before I jump into all of that, I'm just gonna like take a breath. And whether
Yeah.
that's listening to music, grabbing some water, a snack, in my case, sometimes I'll sneak in little cuddles with my son,
I
between
love that.
meetings like that. That can just help me really relax and decompress and put things into perspective of like, this might be a tough situation,
Yeah.
but like, I've got my family here and, that's all that matters and I'm going to get through this. So
Love that.
just giving yourself space between the next thing rather than just going on and on and on.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to kind of revisit because we talked about like how lonely it can be for an HR department of one.
Yeah.
I think just in general, this goes true of any professional who might be dealing with a lot of stress. We need connection and belonging with
Yeah.
people. And a lot of the mental health folks that I've talked to who are really, they know all the science behind this is we all want a sense of belonging. And the more isolated you get, the more stressful and lonely you can get. And that affects your mental health in ways that you probably don't
Yeah.
recognize. So just even like yeah, cuddle your baby or to, talk with your partner for a few minutes
Yeah.
or call a friend or whatever it may be. I mean, journaling, I think, helps in some way. That's not a person, but to like talk
Yeah,
with
for
yourself in
sure.
some ways is a
Yeah.
lot less isolating than if you were not doing that and you're just like lost in your thoughts. So I can't stress that enough is just to connect with
Yeah.
people. And I don't know if you
Yeah.
felt like that too, just having a friend to be able to talk to.
Yeah, I agree. All of my family and like friends and things like that, most of them are in another state, right? So it is harder to
Really.
stay connected to them. And so I think about like, what about the people that don't have, a partner or family or friends nearby? And, we say this as HR professionals to our employees a lot of like, we've got this employee assistance program and, we've got this opportunity. And so I think that that's really important for people who may not have, those
Right.
close relationships, but still need that connection and that conversation. And one way you can get that is through like a mental health professional, right? Or seeking resources through an EAP or other avenue that you have. And I love journaling. I never even thought about that before, Brandon, but you can talk to yourself. Like that's really impactful too, of like just journaling and getting your thoughts out and being able to like read it back to yourself. Like that is a way of like connecting with yourself even and just kind of getting it out. So I think that's a really good example as well.
Not to like completely put you on the spot here, but for listeners who may have not listened to all of the episodes in the past, Nicole was a listener of this podcast, lived in Florida at the time, upended her life, moved with her husband across country to come work for Xenium, and now you
Yeah.
live in Oregon with us.
Yep.
I'm sure you had isolated moments because your family and friends are
Yeah.
all back in Florida. Maybe talk about some ways that you got out of that feeling of isolation and just trying to meet new people and just start your new life.
Yeah. No, thanks for bringing that up because it was really hard. And, right after I moved here to start this new career opportunity, COVID happened. And that was
Right.
even more isolating because I didn't even have the connection and like building those relationships with people in the office as well. So it was like exceptionally hard. And what I did is, well, first off, my husband is like super supportive. Obviously, he was like, sure, let's move across the country for this job opportunity. So he's just very supportive and loving. And so, like, we have a great relationship to where, like, we had a strong connection throughout all of that and, like, supported each other, talked through, like, all of our struggles and frustrations. So I'm very lucky to have had that at that point in my life and to date as well. So that I think is a great way. But I also did a lot of joined a lot of Zoom groups. So there's Meetup, which is like a website where there's just different like groups
Yeah.
that you can become a part of. So I looked at that and I joined some like local HR groups. Like there's the Portland HR Management Association here. And so I like joined that organization to where I could meet people virtually because they were doing kind of all the meetings and things virtually at the time and like talk to people and build those relationships and those connections. I intentionally like because we were all remote during that time at work as well and I couldn't like have the passing by water cooler type of talk with
Yeah.
people. I like would reach out to people and be like, "Hey, do you want to do like this coffee chat where we just like have coffee and get to know each other?" And it required me being pretty proactive, which I know is like hard to do and hard to
Mhm.
prioritize, but I don't think that I would have been as successful as I have been or as like connected and like gotten through that transition if I hadn't done that. And I knew myself enough to know that if I didn't, I would be unhappy and and that's not good and then I would be like, "Oh, why did I do this?" Like I would be questioning myself and so I was like I have to try to make an effort to make sure I'm connected. I'm starting over in a new place and I need to rebuild my community here if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love it. I love what you're saying. It's funny. I was going to round up this conversation by saying, like, what's the piece of advice you'd give HR people to sustain their energy long term? But I think you just said it right there.
You
It's
kind
like
of said it.
the proactiveness about your mental health and taking action
Yeah.
and is sitting on the sidelines is not going to do anybody any good. So, anything else you'd say
Yeah.
in terms of advice for HR leaders?
No, I think I covered it. Like you said, just, be proactive, know yourself, do what's right for yourself before you get to that point of burnout or unhappiness.
Yeah. Good discussion. I appreciate all your insights, Nicole. Thanks for coming on the show.